Hello.
Good evening, Graham. Good evening, Anthony, which has been lovely today. And
Oh, okay.
it's quite a heavy art special in many ways tonight. And special's really the word, I think, of where we're starting. Harrogate's gallery scene, through the years, we have had the wonders of the late Andy Stewart's gallery, Red House Gallery. We've had Walker Gallery for many, many years, the Mercer Gallery. And right now, Graham, there are three exhibitions on in Harrogate of note, and I'm guessing one of them will be the return of Gerard Mankiewicz to Red House in an interesting exhibition involving not just him, but a painter who's interpreted Mankiewicz's famous painting photographs of rock stars of the 1960s. But over to you on this, Graham.
Yeah, well, Harrogate looks like a sort of boring town, beautiful, but very staid. But
Yeah.
as you know, there's actually interesting things going on. So right now there are three galleries with three different exhibitions of
Mm.
contemporary modern art, which are all of a high standard in the sort of thing you get in Manchester, Leeds, or Glasgow, or Edinburgh, or
Yeah.
even London. So
Yeah.
it's like Harrogate is way better than that's how world thinks, but it's also better than it itself thinks because Harrogate itself likes to look at itself as a sort of like quiet little nice place to live without anything too dramatic happening. But there's actually interesting things happening, and these exhibitions are all fantastic, really, really good
Mm.
exhibitions.
Mm. Mm.
So yeah, Red House is there, obviously our favorite Red House originals, and it's
Yes.
got, as you said, it's got Gerard who took all the great photographs for Stone's front covers in the '60s, like Between the Buttons, and did the Jam and Kate Bush and Jimi Hendrix and all the great stars, all the way through to Oasis. He took photographs for Oasis as well.
Yes.
And then
Okay.
he's now in his '70s, but still, you'd think he was still in his '20s, really. Such a young thinking guy. And him and Christian Fur. Now, Gerard's from London, Christian's from the world,
Yeah.
and Christian's a little bit younger. And at one point, he was very young because in 1995, Christian was commissioned to do a portrait of the Queen when he was only 28, which is the youngest artist ever to be asked
Ah.
to do a portrait of the Queen. And he told me when I met him on Friday afternoon at Red
Mm.
House before the exhibition opened, he
Mm.
told me that his proudest moment was making the Queen laugh.
Now,
Now
Graham,
he
I
didn't.
think we need to clear this up. Was she laughing at the
Yeah,
quality of the portrait, or was she just finding him
no, no,
amusing?
no, no. I mean, you don't just like have the Queen sitting for you there once.
No.
There's a lot to before you come up with a portrait. So, she wasn't laughing at the end result whatsoever. But he
No.
didn't tell
No.
me what she laughed at. So I thought I know what it'll be. So the best part of the last decade on and off with Gerard. And what they do
Mm.
is they decide between themselves in advance what of Gerard's famous photographs,
Mm.
music stars of the last 5 decades, they like. Then
Yes.
they have a little chat between themselves about what sort of colours they're going to bring to it, and also what sort of feeling they want the photograph to have. So when you actually see the photographs they've used, the Stones, a lot of Kate Bush, in theory, it's an approach I don't like the sound of because basically they take black and white photographs, specific eras, and they put warm colours, usually blues or oranges.
Mm.
And Christian does a little bit of like tinkering with the background to make it more of an abstract background. And in theory, that to me sounds like the wrong approach because the great thing about Gerard's photographs, apart from the sense of composition and the drama
Mm.
involved in the person who's sitting for the photograph or standing for the photograph, is the honesty. All these photographs are very honest. They're not like show busy. And he told me the great thing about the 1960s when he was very young. I mean, he became a photographer
Very
at
young when he
15.
started. 18, wasn't he?
Yeah. Well, he started. He
Mm.
was 15, but he just
15,
blagged his
sorry.
way
Mm.
into
Mm.
it. He didn't go to
Mm.
photography college or anything.
No.
But he said the big thing about six was that they were totally against showbiz, and it was all very honest, which is very different to now when everybody's into marketing themselves. They weren't into marketing, so the photographs about really honest quality of the character of the person always comes out. So I didn't like the idea of it, but when you see it
No.
in the flesh, apart from the fact it's very attractive to look at, the
Mm.
other interesting thing is that it looks like now. It stopped looking like a photograph from 1967 or
Yes.
1977, it looks like it's just happened, and it brings these famous people alive again. And so it has a much better impact than the theory involved would suggest it's going to have. And there's
Yeah,
a couple of stunning
the
ones.
theory makes it sound quite dry, doesn't it? I mean, I look back to just Hendrix is one of the examples. Jimi Hendrix with a very spotty face, one of the best of all Mankiewicz's pictures. And you think now, well, what they would do is they just Photoshop all that out.
Oh yeah, yeah. We had a
That,
big discussion. I had a big chat with Gerard about digital photography and AI
yeah,
in the modern world. And yeah, he agrees entirely that the sort of stuff
mm.
that he was doing just doesn't happen now, and
No, it
wouldn't happen.
doesn't.
But
But
he
so
did
that's
say that,
interesting that
yeah,
you and I would agree that and Gerard obviously says us the same, that photoshopping is a negative tool. But what's interesting from what you're saying is actually you can reinterpret these and bring something new to them and bring
yeah,
them alive again.
well, yeah, because Gerard is young and young at heart still. He's not against all the technology, and he himself uses some of it because what he's for is creativity, and he
Yes.
knows these tools can be creative in
Mm,
the right hands. So he's not a Luddite. He's not trying to turn the clock back at all. And he says there's a young generation of new photographers coming up who are fascinated by analog photography.
yes.
So they're all getting into using old-fashioned cameras and developing prints by hand. So it's no, in no way a man living in the past. And these paintings, or rather artworks, he's done with Christian Fur
Mm,
surely shows he's not living in the past. And there's two stunning ones in particular. There's a gorgeous one of Marianne Faithfull.
mm.
It's just it's bigger than head and shoulders, like it's like head to like legs, and it's just it's treated in pale blue colors, and it's
Mm,
just exquisite, and her eyes just like go right through you. And there's
mm.
a great one of Kate Bush when she was very young on the sessions for the Kick Inside album, her first album,
Yes, yes.
and they were called the Wuthering Heights session after
Mm.
the single that was
The
number
hit
one.
single. Mm, mm,
And she's wearing her leotard, and her pose is so provocative. She's looking right at the camera, and every part of her body is positioned in a way that
mm,
says, I am an attractive young woman.
mm.
I'm looking right at you. What are you going to do about it?
And yet
So it's
famously, she is always now said to be very uncomfortable about them. The most famous of all the images, which is the one where, to be somewhat blunt about this, um, the the body is pretty much on show in beneath stretch wear, leaving nothing to
yeah.
the imagination. And I think what my understanding is that she's always now been rather uncomfortable about this photograph, in that in some ways it's whether you'd
It
call
did,
it intrusive, but
it doesn't come across like that. I mean,
no.
obviously there's a sexual element to that Garrett's original photograph, which
Mm,
can't be taken away by merely Christian Fur and Garrett
no,
getting together and
no.
retreating it with colors and various effects.
Mm,
It's there, but it doesn't come across in a sort of like sexist fashion
no,
or old-fashioned glamour pin-up type way.
no, no,
This
no.
it comes across that this is someone who's completely self-possessed
Mm,
of her own character and
mm,
completely fearless. And so when you look at it, it's almost like you're almost overpowered by it. You're almost
mm,
overpowered by Kate Bush's strength in
mm,
herself,
mm,
and it's just stunning piece of work.
mm, mm.
But
I mean,
yes,
it's
it's a
really
great
interesting to
exhibition.
hear. It's interesting to hear you interpret that way. As I say, I merely mentioned the fact that my understanding was that she's very uncomfortable about the most famous of all images from that photo session, for
Well,
the
it could
reasons
be
I've
that
said. And yet,
yeah.
actually, the interpretation that you give would be the one I think that would stand to being the more logical. But she has challenged that, obviously, in what she's said
Yeah,
about the
yeah, but
image. It'd be
you got to
interesting to know
remember
what
this
she
is
thinks about the new, what she thinks about the painting image, what that's done to make her feel about it.
well. I think what that does is it makes it less real and more like an artwork,
Yeah.
which would lessen possibly her own sense of
Mm,
somehow having been sort of like sucked into the promotion industry based on capitalizing on female musicians' sexuality.
mm,
I think that Gerard and Christian together, by making an artwork, have lessened that that potential risk as
yes.
well.
Yes.
So
How,
I
Graham,
think she
does
could
it
probably like
differ
what she says.
from? I'm thinking in terms of Andy Warhol's images of any number of, from Chairman Mao to Marilyn Monroe to Jackie Kennedy, and the pop art technique with that, taking an image and throwing art at it, basically. How does it compare with that pop art philosophy from Warhol?
Completely different, totally
Mm,
different. Apart from some of the colors and the subject matter, Andy Warhol's work wasn't really about the individual. It was about an idea. He was a sort of conceptual artist who
yes.
used the real world and famous figures as the subject, but it
Mm,
was always an idea, and that's why they've got a longevity because all these prints and paintings actually say something. Whereas Gerard's much more into just a human being. He's not an ideologically driven
no.
artist. So what you're getting is someone's character. So you're getting beauty and strength and intelligence and energy and charisma. That's
Mm,
not what Andy Warhol does. Andy Warhol
no.
is quite a hard-edged artist, or he was when he
Mm,
was alive. So they're not they're you know they're sort of in the same area, but they're very different. And in Christian Fur's own solo paintings in the exhibition, which are part of his Diamond Dust series,
yeah.
they're all sort of abstract, but again, they're sort of pop art, but not pop art because they're sort of abstract, but with a sort of like glittery, fuzzy, psychedelic effect.
Mm,
And the glitter that he uses in some of those paintings is so effective that when you look at one of his paintings in this
mm,
exhibition at a certain angle, it seems to the picture seems to come out of the frame and dangle in front of your eyes. And it's not that he's trying to get a 3D effect, it's just the effect of the light hitting
yeah.
the little bits of glitter on the painting. It sort of dazzles you, so
Mm,
it has quite a sort of physical impact.
mm. I
So
mean,
the exhibition as a whole, the two sides, both Christian Fur's solo material
mm,
and the collaboration with Gerard, what
mm,
they do is they're based on warm colour
mm.
and on a sort of enjoyable, aesthetically pleasing visual aspect, but with a sort of like very human feeling. They're not about ideas, they're more about humanity.
How would they contrast? Here's another contrast to think about with Italian Renaissance paintings of the Virgin Mary, for example, full of blue, full of
Well,
gold.
yeah, yeah, also a bit of iconography. There's definitely iconography going on
Yes.
in the exhibition for sure. And interesting, like apart from the portrait of the Queen, Christian Fur, who's a very successful artist, he did a series of paintings of cheese, which which you may think sounds a bit odd, but when you actually see these series of paintings of cheese that he did, and it's just a lump of cheese on a board on a table. Well, they're amazing paintings because they sort of combine a little bit of like Dutch 17th century
Mm,
still life paintings and style, a little
mm,
bit of like modern Scottish figurative painters like Paul Reed, who do a sort of pseudo classical style, and a little tiny touch of like Salvador Dali's surrealism. So
mm.
although it's just the cheese, there's actually quite a lot going on. It's and they're brilliantly painted. Like his skill as a fine artist is really good. So there's a lot more going on than meets the eye when you see Christian Fur's stuff.
I'm desperately trying to think of a punning name that he could give one of his cheese paintings, and I've let myself down by failing to come up with anything cheesy or fromagey whatsoever. So that's one exhibition, Graham. Tell me of the two others.
Caravaggio sounds a bit like a cheese.
Good point. It does, doesn't it?
Mm. Oh,
So
a
tell me
slice of
about
Caravaggio, please.
tell me
Well,
about
by
the
the
two
way,
other
that
exhibitions then.
well, yeah, well, briefly, the Red House one, which runs till May the 26th,
Yeah,
called In Wonder. At the
yeah,
launch on Friday night, which we went to later on, Horace Panter, the modern pop artist, and member of the Specials, was there as
yes,
well. So I had
yes,
a quick chat with him. Anyway, moving on, 108 Fine Art, the other fantastic Harrogate
yeah.
gallery. It's bounced back from the very very sad death a year ago of its co-founder Andrew Stewart
Mm,
and his wife and
yes,
fellow co-founder Gillian is now running it with
yeah.
their daughters, India and Scarlett, and all of them have
Oh
got a
yeah,
great
yeah.
pedigree in art. It's not like
Exactly.
Andrew did everything on his own. So
No, no,
so
no,
already
not at all.
already I can tell it's working really well. That the
Mm.
families kept the whole ethos and style of 108 Fine
Oh,
Art,
that's
which is
wonderful to
amazing.
hear. Good, good.
Amazing
Yes.
house, amazing space.
Mm.
They're a bit like their old Tenenbaums, except not as rich. They're full of character and they're
Yes,
quirky without trying to be quirky. They're
yes.
bohemian without knowing they're bohemian. They don't play games. They don't strike poses. They're just naturally
Yeah,
great at art and actually
yeah.
great at creating a gallery and
Mm.
having character in a very friendly fashion. So they've got a spring exhibition called Brushstrokes and Bees, which is two separate artists who aren't linked really. One of them is William Watson West, and the other one is Andrew Chajak. And William actually lived in Houston for a long time and has moved to London. And
Yeah.
he does very colourful abstract paintings.
Yeah.
Andrew is from down south and lived and worked in London, and he's moved to Yorkshire. He's done the opposite thing to William.
Yeah.
And he does very precise, intricate, but sort of like delicately pretty, not in a sort of like annoying fashion of bees. So hence the bees of the title. And William's brushstrokes are very vibrant and very free and very spontaneous. But the end result of all that in his abstract paintings is a great sense of balance and a great use of color. So they're very attractive. Like as soon as you see one of his paintings, you go, "Oh, that's nice." And it has no subject because it's abstract, and it's not even, there's not even a hint of a subject. It purely is the sheer joy of the brushstroke. Whereas Andrew's intricate bees are they're a bit like Andy Warhol's because Andy was into repetition, and there's a real repetition of bees. You don't just get one bee. It's not like a gigantic portrait of one bee. Each bee painting has lots of bees, and they usually look exactly the same. So it's all about repetition. And so that's also a very interesting exhibition, a joint exhibition. And William, when he was William does obviously abstract, but because I was chatting afterwards, he has a very tidy art studio. He likes it to be clean and not too cluttered.
Yeah.
But he ends up with abstract, technically messy art, even though his studio is totally pristine. Andrew, whose art is precise, is the exact opposite. His studio is a complete mess. It is completely cluttered.
Was ever in doubt about doing an exhibition about bees? Was it a case of to be or not to be?
Buzz off, Charles.
So the third one, Graham.
Yeah, it's Harrogate's Public Gallery, which was owned by Harrogate Borough Council, although now it's North Yorkshire Council that runs it, and the Mercer Gallery. And this is a place of great history. I mean, its origins go back to the 1790s, and in the 19th century, it had visitors including Lord Byron and Oscar Wilde. Oscar Byron, I don't know. But it's all these historic figures went there.
Yes, it did.
Of course, so it's quite an old-fashioned building, as you know. The Mercer looks old-fashioned, but it has held some great blockbuster exhibitions in the last 15 years, which have done really well. It's even ended up, and it's quite a small gallery. It's even ended up on BBC Radio 4 and the national press. So for a small public gallery in Harrogate, it's always done really well. But the latest exhibition is just totally transformative. I've never seen anything like it at the Mercer. It's the Turner Prize-winning British artist Martin Creed.
Oh,
and
yes.
I think he won the Turner Prize in about 2000. And he was in the tail end of the wave of young British artists.
Yes.
Like Dean Hurst and Tracy Emin. I think he won for his lights that flashed on and off. so he's got an exhibition.
That was the famous exhibition where people went into the room, and if they went in when the lights were off, they thought, "Oh, there's nothing in there." That was that one,
exactly. Yeah, that's him. So he's got a sense of humor as Martin. So his exhibition is called. It's part of the Artist Room series, which the Tate in London and the National Galleries of Scotland have put together to take great contemporary modern art around the provinces. And Harrogate has done really well to get that exhibition. And when I arrived to check out before they opened, there was people there from Tate and National Galleries of Scotland placing and hanging all the work.
Yeah.
And truly, you've never seen the Mercer looking like it does now because the biggest piece, the biggest installation in the whole exhibition is work number 370, balls, and it consists of 900 balls on the floor. So when you walk in the Mercer, you will straight away see 900 different coloured balls of different sizes right on the floor in front of you.
An exhibition that's a load of balls. Excellent.
Well, yeah, if you're not into modern art, you could actually see that, but it's a bit too obvious. We don't really do obvious puns and gags, do we?
I think I've always tried to do as many obvious ones as I can. But
yeah, I was being sarcastic.
I thought you were. And so now, Graham, I mean, that was curated not by Harrogate, but do we know how it came to be in Harrogate?
the people at Mercer have been involved as well. Because when I was there,
Okay.
it was a joint. Because obviously the Tate and National Galleries don't know what
Yeah.
Mercer's like inside.
No.
And Martin Creed was there the day before I arrived
Yeah.
to check that he was happy with the setup. So
Mm.
it's definitely been a joint creative work of curation. It's not just been like, the big boys come from outside Harrogate, arrive,
Yeah.
do what they want, set up, and then clear off. It's Harrogate and Mercer Gallery people have been deeply involved with the whole process.
Mm. Mm.
And it's quite fun. You walk in, it doesn't look like the Mercer at all, and you almost laugh because it's like an artistic playpen.
And one of the other pleasures, Graham, unless I'm wrong, all three galleries do not charge.
Actually, Charles, you're right. So you've got three galleries with national standard exhibitions with modern artists, all for
Yeah.
free. Good grief. When people say that Harrogate's spoiled, they're not wrong, are they?
I mean, it's quite a thought that, and I think that's all for the good. And well, I know, there's obviously there's a cost in running a gallery, and one appreciates that, and it's the dilemma that always faces York Art Gallery, who've come to a kind of compromise situation now, where, as it stands, although again they may have to redecide on this, but the way it works now is that you're able to see the permanent collection, that whatever's from the permanent collection on show, and go around that, and then the main exhibition, there's a charge to see that, whereas at one time they introduced just a charge across going in at all.
I remember that's why I haven't been back.
Yeah.
I
So I
think
mean,
I've only been two or three times because if you're going to pay money to get in, you want
yeah,
something pretty spectacular.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, I agree. So I mean, I think it's still a commercial shortfall that they're looking at, and tough decisions again to be made on that. But I think they have to be brave on this, and not remove that opportunity to see it, the permanent gallery collection for free. That should be something that you living in a city have a right to see, it seems to me. And if it inspires other people to become artists, which
Well,
links
that's cool.
the event that I want to mention now,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is the idea being that I understand why specialist exhibitions, that yes, they cost to bring them to the cities, so you have a charge for that. I do think it, painful as it is to say so, I do think I understand why that has to be the case. But one is always the
Yeah, but
opportunity to see art for free.
As 10cc once sang, art for
Art for
art's
art's
sake,
sake, money for money's sake. Money for God's sake,
money
wasn't
for
it?
God's sake. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, money for
yeah.
God's sake. Yeah.
Well, I have, as I said, today I spent going around York Open Studios, which was the fourth of the days of it. It's been held in York for, I think, since 2001, and my recollection was York Open Studios was the very first one of its kind to be established in this country. Long history with it.
Yeah.
I say long history, with that more than 20 years. And this year's event, last weekend and this weekend, so 150, more than 150 artists taking part. I was chatting with one sculptor, Peter Donahue, and I think he took part. I think this was his 16th event. I think his 16th year that he's done it. And he was saying that he recalled the first time he did it, maybe as few as in the 40s, the number of artists. But now to have 150 artists involved, and craftsmen and makers, and to have 100 different locations in the city involved, is a testament to how successful it has been in the city. And Celestine and I, we decided we'll go around this year just primarily seeing works by artists that were new to this event, because there are familiar figures within the York art scene, names like Mark Hurld, that there are other opportunities to see their work. And I mean, I would encourage anyone to go and see any of the artists, but it was interesting. This, just an example, just a snapshot of who we went to this year. So we saw the work of a Nigerian artist whose family moved to York 18 months ago. And in the front room of the house was wall to wall was the work by Nduka Omefe. And this was in Baker Street in York, not obviously the famous Baker Street of Jerry Rafferty, in Clifton. And he's a watercolor artist, and the subjects primarily are still on show were subjects from Nigeria. But I said to him, how's York having an influence so far on your work? And he just showed me one example, which that is, whereas the work that we saw from Nigeria was wonderful portraits and street scenes. And there was one in which there was a traffic jam. And he said what tends to happen is that people sit in these traffic jams for 4 hours. They've only got enough time to do a painting in that. And he said, well, you can sit in a car, read a book, whatever. That's the pace of life and that's how it works. But what had struck him in York by comparison was the architecture, but also the cycling that goes on in the city. So the first one he showed me that he's done of York was a combination of a street scene and a cyclist going through that street scene. So it'll be fascinating to see how his work develops. But that was just one example. Then there was a Slovakian artist. Do you know, Graham, what epoxy is?
I've definitely heard of it, but that doesn't get many prizes.
So you're right.
It involves a resin, epoxy resin. Epoxy resin.
That Graham, you got there. Epoxy resin. She's called Lenka Pavuk. And again, if the pronunciation isn't right, Lenka, I apologize. Again, family not been in York, I think, for that long. And she's from Slovakia, as I say. And this work with the resin, they're utterly beautiful pieces. One of them, there are 6 layers of resin involved. I mean, it's extraordinary. The technique is
a lot of resin.
Absolutely a lot of resin. A lot of resin detra there to make the piece work. And
resin
this is what I love about this event, that you will see you do not know what you're going to come across. It's so varied in what it has. So the other one that I really enjoyed was a piece. Luke Downing, who works for Film 4, video maker originally in York, filmmaker still, and a writer. And he found, when his great uncle died, he found the cine reels. And what he's done with the cine reels is that he's set them to new poetry that he's written. And he's called on various of the spoken word artists in York, such as Hannah Davis, to do the readings of his poems, set against watching the films in the background. It's a spiel that runs for 6 minutes 30, and it's just beautifully nostalgic and contemplative. And he'd set up a little film studio in the back garden. And in the same house were 2 further artists, Amy and Emily Stubbs, with their work. And this is how, again, I love about it, is that within one house you had work by 3 contrasting artists, and it is that slightly surprise element of what am I going to find through the front door. And in one of the ones I went to, I mean, it's often as interesting actually just to see the houses, to see how artists do up their houses, or how they present their art in their house. And one of the other newcomers that we went to, the house in the front room, right in the middle of this front room, is the staircase, right across the middle of the room. And I'm thinking, I'm the kind of clumsy person who would be hitting my head on that endlessly. It would be too dangerous a house for me to ever live in. And
can you imagine like going downstairs at night time in the dark? That sounds like a trip hazard waiting to happen, Charles, quite frankly. Unbelievable.
I think it's far too risky to do that.
Anyway, Charles,
I'm struggling to find her name as I flick through the book.
I was going to say 2 things about Open Studios. First of all, Harrogate Open Studios, which is also pretty big. The one thing that's different about that to York, and it's different between a city and a town, is that Harrogate Open Studios is fairly well dominated by fine art and old arts and crafts things. There's not like video art or poetry and blah blah blah, and there's no like international aspect. It's very Yorkshire, whereas the York one sounds like a city one. The other thing I was going to say was that epoxy resin. If I was going to be the female lead singer of a punk band in 1978, I'd be called epoxy resin.
You wouldn't be you wouldn't be Ari Up, and you wouldn't be polystyrene. You would be epoxy resin. So to give the name of the artist, and forgive me, Ali Hunter is the name of the artist, and she and her partner moved to York. He's a history lecturer at the University of York, and she works there in admin. And she says, admin by day, artist by night. And Ali's just been on a painting trip. Well, she's been on a trip to Paris. What she does, she'll take photographs and then interpret them through her painting works. That was in Rose Street in York.
That sounds great, Charles.
With this amazing staircase.
Sounds an amazing variety of different types of artists.
But I mean, perhaps I've stressed the fact that there's an international element to it that I really like. And this is what's interesting, is that people who move into York absorbed being in York. Unduka was saying how much he loved the artistic world in York. It was a city that he felt absolutely absorbed straight away into the art scene. It just felt right for him.
York's not very corporate. It's all very street. It's all
Well,
very
I
grounded.
think that's what's been so important about this event through the years, that it is important that we have the City Art Gallery. It is important that the Museums Trust runs as many galleries and museums as it does. That is hugely significant in terms of feeding into the tourism in the city, and as well the culture for those who live in the city. Not to call it an underground event would be wrong with York Open Studios. What I love is that you go, it's the balloons everywhere. There's balloons and there's signs leading you to find where it's around a street. It's around the back somewhere, and it takes over the city in a very. It's not assertive. It's just a joy to discover. To compare it with going around Barcelona may seem very odd, but what I mean by this is that when you go through the streets in Barcelona and you will discover a leather maker in a back street, it has that kind of feel to it.
Yeah, I love all that
discovery.
Stuff. When I did my little music magazine, Charm, for Leeds, York and Harrogate in the late 90s, I used to get it printed in York by Irvin, the rock and roll printer, because he was into rock and roll. He's a big music fan. And when I used to go and deliver the finished pages for him to print, he'd go out his back door into his back garden, which is a reasonably large back garden in York. And his print works was in a very large shed at the bottom of his garden. So, I love when creative things happen in backyards and living rooms and places that are really natural and are really personal to the person who's doing it. I love all that stuff.
You've been listening to the podcast Two Big Egos in a Small Car. Your hosts were Graham Chalmers and